it was scary. It was very scary, and it was almost traumatic. And because of that, I was in denial for a very long time. I crave for rejection sometimes because it's the fuel to push me to achieve greater things for myself. Whew, I need to sit up right for this. This is like a therapy.
Get ready for an inspiring journey as we dive into the remarkable transformation of Andee Chua. From societal and family rejection to legally marrying another man in Asia, his story is one of resilience and achievement. Join us as we explore how to uncover your life's purpose or anchor, how to navigate challenges while staying true to your beliefs, and how can leaders build diverse and inclusive teams. But before we dive in, remember to hit that subscribe button. Let's go! If we go to your journey as a gay individual, starting from when you noticed that you had a different interest, till the moment you accepted yourself, can you tell us that journey?
Whew, I need to sit up right for this. I think when I first knew that I was gay, or I kind of have interest in same-sex people, I was in a denial. I didn't really want to admit it because I was in an environment where being gay was kind of not allowed, or it's a taboo, or it's just kind of wrong, right? And I remember just growing up, there wasn't any media representation of gay people. There wasn't any role model to look up to. So everything that I hear about being gay is bad. It's like you get sick, you have AIDS, everything that is like negative. So of course, when I first kind of came to be a realization with myself that, oh, I might like guys. Why am I checking out this guy that I like? Why do I have feelings for the boys in class? I was in like denial, right? And it took me many years to recognize myself and to fully embrace this gay identity. But it took a very long while, and I would say the first time that I kind of feel that coming out is an option, it's probably during high school when I was in dance. I think dance gave me this platform to showcase myself and to express myself in a different way. I could use stage performance as an excuse, or somewhat as an escape to showcase a different side of me. And that feels good. That feels like freedom. I feel liberated. And when I got that feeling, of course, I crave more. I crave to have it in the real world. And I think that was when I felt like coming out or being honest about this side of me is an option. So that was how the process was.
And how did you navigate the family and also the society?
So with my family, it took me many years to come to where I am today, and I would say it's not perfect, right? So I first came out to my sister, when I was, I can't remember what age was that, but let's say 20. I came out to my sister when I was 20. It took me about 3 years before I came out to my mom, and then another 3 years before I came out to my dad. So it was a really long journey, right? And the reason for that is because like I said, I come from a very traditional family. And my parents have very traditional values, and they don't really have friends or anyone around them who identifies as LGBTQ+. So naturally, it's a very hard topic for me to have with them. Even until today, I would be very honest. Um, so it took me many years, and I always try to find the right moment, but there was no right moment to come out. So all of my coming out with my sister, my mom, and my dad was done pretty abruptly. But in no, they didn't find out, but I was the one who initiated those conversations. Um, so yeah, it took many years for that to happen, and when I got together with my now husband about 6 years ago, I posted a picture of us on Facebook without realizing that a lot of my relatives were on my Facebook, my parents' friends were on my Facebook, and obviously they knew from that moment that I was not straight and I was seeing a guy. Um, and honestly, that to me was a relief because I don't have to lie about being straight, especially going back to to my relative houses during Lunar New Year, and you have to always say like, "Oh, I'm not getting married. I'm not having a girlfriend because I'm busy with work." I don't have to lie, and I feel like that is a nice feeling to have. I didn't obviously come out to them face to face, but well, social media really helps, these days to just come out to the world and come out to people without having to go through that process of sitting down and talking things out, which can be very uncomfortable.
What would you like your parents to know about you that would help them understand you better?
It's a very interesting, not a tough question, but a really deep question. Um, because I was just telling my husband that, in this family of four, I always feel like me, my sister, my mom, my dad, or more like I am on a different side of the world than they are. Because they are quite similar in terms of their thinking, very traditional, very by the book, you know, conventional thinking. And I'm obviously very unconventional and challenges the systems and always just, doing different things. Um, so I always feel a little bit like a loner, or like I'm on a different side of the book. So what I really want my sister or even my parents to know about me is that I think I gave people this feeling that I'm very independent and I have got it all together. And I think that's what my parents or even my sister thinks about me, that you know there's nothing to worry about you. Like you got it all together, you've got it all figured out, and look at you now, right? And then what I want them to know is that for me to get there to this persona, um, I want them to know the story behind it. I want them to know how I got to where I am and the hardship and the trauma and the pain that I've been through in order for me to get there. And also to understand that deep down, I'm not as strong as they think I am. I need support. I need help. I need them to be there for me when I need them. And I think that's what I want them to learn about me, because I think what they know and see about me is very much on the surface, and maybe it's also partly my fault because that's how I portray myself, right? I'm always trying to be strong. I'm always trying to get it all together just because I don't really want to show that I'm weak to my family, because I've it's a part of my journey. Showing weakness to them doesn't help. I have to be strong, or I have to put it all together to be able to, you know, gather some sort of recognition or to feel belong. So I think this is a very long answer, but what I really want them to know is the other side of me, the weaker side of me, the more vulnerable side of me, and understand that, you know, like I do need their support and I do need them to be there for me. Not all the time, of course, but sometimes I need that.
And in that process, which one was one of your lowest moments, and how did you come out of it?
My lowest moment. Okay, in all honesty, I think the lowest moment was pretty recent. So me and my partner got married in Taiwan, and it was very happy news, right? It was very happy news. Our friends are celebrating us, people that know us online were celebrating us, only except for my family. So it was kind of something that I always wished for when I was young. That one day when I get married, I want my family to be there. I want them to feel happy for me, like any other kids, right? Like you always want that. So I think the lowest point for me was knowing the fact that they don't fully agree with my marriage, and when I asked them about coming to my wedding next year, well, they were a little bit hesitant and a little bit reluctant to be there. So I think that was kind of when I realized that a lot of what I crave for and want for as a kid will not eventually come true. So I would say maybe that's how I feel kind of could be the lowest point, in this whole entire coming out journey, because I've came out when I was 20, and that was over 10 years ago. This is what I think, right? Over 10 of the years, you as my parents and my sister still can't accept me fully for who I am. That's kind of sad, right? That's kind of sad. And you not wanting to be at my wedding day is, to me, pretty hurtful. But honestly, I think I've also passed the stage of thinking about what it means to be family. Like, what does family means, right? Like, does it have to be people that are blood related to you, or you can find what you call the chosen family? And I think I have realized this over this period of time that there are some family that you are bound to be family because your parents gave birth to you and they are called family. But the family that will be with you throughout the remaining of the years that you're alive, and who will really truly give you blessing for who you are and accept you for who you are, don't necessarily need to be families that give birth to you.
Thank you so much for sharing that, Andee. It looks like you, after a long time, you just wanted to be accepted, right? And that didn't happen. Over these years, there were many rejections. You had to go through many rejections. How did you overcome that rejections internally?
I think rejections is the number one thing that I feel the most at every stage of my life. So growing up, when I was a kid, I always feel rejected because, when I go home to my dad or my mom and I say, hey, this is what I did in school, like, and in my mind, I'm like, praise me, right? Give me some recognition. But it's always been, I always feel rejected because it wasn't what I was thinking, right? They will say that you're not doing good enough. This is not good. It must be your fault that you fought with your friends. It's always my fault, right? So that was like rejections that I faced kind of growing up. And then going into dance is the same. Like you go to competitions, you go for any sort of performances. There's bound to be failures and rejections. And as a model, when you go for castings. You can go for 100 castings and get none of the jobs. You get 100 rejections. So rejections to me in my life has become a staple. So I feel like I'm well trained. I'm well trained with rejections, and I sometimes do enjoy being rejected. The reason why, because when you get rejected, you know what's not good. You know what can be better. You know what to improve on, right? What is the gap to fill? And I love, I don't know, I just love that feeling kind of growing up. I never liked being number one. I never liked being first. I never liked the idea of getting a gold medal. I like the idea of getting bronze and silver. I like the idea of not being the first, because there's always that room to improve.
Well, and you mentioned about you were craving when you come home. You were craving. What do you think you were really craving when you were like coming home and asking your family to be praised? What were you really craving?
I think I was craving for recognition. I was craving for a sense of belonging, and I was craving for the sense of unity. Because to me, like getting that approval and that praise, it's not so much about like you've done the job well, but that sense of camaraderie, the sense of like we all agree on a certain thing together and we all celebrate something together. It's like I like the feeling of when people come together and celebrate something. So I think that was what I feel like I'm craving for, more than the recognition. Yeah.
Wow, so nice. And in this journey, what have you learned about yourself?
I think the biggest thing that I learned about myself is that I'm someone who likes challenges, right? I'm definitely a challenger, right? And I say that because like the way I talk about rejections, I also think about the word failure a lot. And I feel that you have to fail a lot when you're young, not just when you're young, but actually throughout your years. You have to keep failing, to be able to find the best version of yourself. And the version of yourself can always be evolving and changing. I want to seek out for new challenge. I want to seek out for things that break me, which is kind of sadistic. Like you break me and then remold myself again, go through some hardships, and I always try to create that type of environment for myself. Because when things are too smooth sailing, when things are too comfortable, first I get very bored of it. Two, it's just I just don't feel growth. I just don't feel like I'm growing.
And how do you think that helped you to find your purpose or your anchor?
I can tell you that throughout this years, kind of exploring myself and learning about myself, the number one anchor in my life, and the thing that I think about most of the time, is community. Is finding the community. And I think this brings back to my formative years as a child. But I grew up in a family where I have a traditional family values. I know that I'm gay at a very young age. I was always craving for acceptance, craving for a sense of belonging, and I crave, like I said, for that camaraderie as a family. But fortunately or unfortunately, I didn't really get what I was looking for as a kid. So I start to look outside of the family unit for this feeling. And when I was looking around, and either in school, with my basketball team at the time, and with my peers, outside of the school compound, I was always seeking for that sense of belonging. And when I don't really find that, I create it. So I created it by bringing people together and forming that group that I can feel safe, that I can feel belong, and that I can, feel that I'm growing together with these people. So I think that has become a habit that, in every new environment that I go to, I try to first seek out for that group, and if there is none, I create one.
It would be interesting to understand, like you spoke about self-awareness. You work a lot on your self-awareness. And what helped you to find this anchor? Because now for you, it's easy. You have this anchor. It doesn't matter what you're going to do after. This is your purpose. This is your anchor. What helped you to understand, to realize that this was your anchor?
I think what really helped me is through, of course, a lot of personality tests. But what I love the most is this personality tool called Anagram. So I love doing Anagram because it's kind of, basically a tool that you're able to find out what are your personality types. It doesn't really define of who you are on a spectrum, but more of like, these are your personality types. And I think what really helped me is not just understanding what my personality types are, but what resulted in these personality types. So it looks all the way back to your childhood and your childhood trauma, how you grew up as an individual when you were young, and what is the hurt and trauma that you go through. So I kind of bring myself back and start thinking about this. That's why I was able to tell you that, growing up, I was finding a sense of belonging, security, and camaraderie, right? And all that came from this work of kind of taking, I don't know, 1,000 steps back and looking at your childhood, because that's what I believe, right? Like, we have so many personality tests now, but it tells you who you are now.
I love it. I love it. Not just like you did the personality test, like the Enneagram, but you went back and you understood like your childhood, going deeper, asking deeper questions, and you realized that community is what brings everything together, what drives you, right? Wow, so good. Really good. For people who might be in a similar situation like you, thinking different, and they are also just wanting to show up authentically, and they just want to feel included, what are your 3 pieces of advice?
Yeah, so I think that there are a lot of young people out there who think differently, but are very afraid to act differently because of the environment that they're in, right? And I feel that growing up, right? But my advice to young people would be, just do it. I mean, it's easy to say, right? It's very easy to say, just do it or just start. But I would say it in the sense like, well, before you act on it differently, like, find your community, like, find people that are different, different but similar to you, right? People that could support you through that journey of acting differently, because that had helped me a lot, right? I always feel like I'm an underdog. I wasn't the best in school. I didn't get the recognition from school, from teachers, from parents. No, I was never brought up in a way to think that I'm a smart student or I'm someone that's smart. But then throughout life, because of that, I do things differently, right? And I think a lot of Singaporeans, a lot of people think differently, but they are very afraid to act differently. And then the second point, I think, is to understand that failing is always an option. Like, failing is always an option, because you never know whether you will succeed, right? You never know whether you will go through life and always make the right decisions. So because, like I said, I love failing and I love rejections. So I think that has kind of prepped me in having the courage to act differently, knowing that if I fail, then it's an experience, right? I took it as an experience. Be curious and ask a lot of questions. So I think that's kind of how I grew up, right? I think I'm an annoying student or an annoying kid to my parents because I'm always asking why, and I'm always curious to break boundaries. I'm curious to see, like, can things be done a different way?
I love it. So keep asking questions,
Yeah.
keep challenging, and then look for your community where you can feel a sense of belonging, but also there you will find more answers about what you love. Good. This is going good, Andee. From systems, now I think we can go into a company. I mean, yourself, you went from being a model, being a dance teacher, working for a VC, and now you work in a company. You work with diversity and inclusion. What frustrates you the most about what's happening today at the workplace in this topic?
I think one thing that frustrates me the most in the D&I space in workplaces is that a lot of companies rolled out D&I initiatives as a way to check the box, right? Because we all know that it is fundamentally, we all know that it is important to have D&I practices in the workplace nowadays, because it's a thing to do in this century. But a lot of companies are doing it to check the box. When I say that, it's because they don't really invest deep enough in the D&I practices and really go down to level to care for people's well-being and making people feel included. So a lot of companies, they check the box by hiring a diverse pool of talents. So when you go to a company, you see a diverse number of people, all from different cultural backgrounds, different age group, different gender, and so on and so forth. But my personal belief is that diversity doesn't stick without inclusion. So diversity and inclusion is one word that we say, but it has so much more layers and meaning to it. Yes, diversity is a good first step to diversify your talent pool, but then the second step is how to make people feel included. Because there's no point of hiring someone different from you when you don't give them a chance to speak in a meeting, or you don't promote them, or you don't give them any sort of recognition for the work that they do. So I think it's important to make people feel included at work, and I think inclusion is the number one key priority in driving for a D&I practice in the workplace. And I feel that that's kind of still lacking in a lot of workplaces right now.
And what could be something, even if it's small, that companies can do in order to go deeper in the topic of inclusion?
Yeah, so I think inclusion, it's not rocket science. It's not very hard to do. I feel like as leaders, as in big corporations especially, or in any corporations, if you have a D&I practice, and you have D&I strategy going forward, the inclusion piece comes in, in a way where you can go on the ground and understand different people's culture. As a good first step, right? Understanding the construct within your team, who are these people, where are they from, and being able to facilitate a safe space for open dialogues. Because you have now a diverse pool of people, you have to expect and embrace diversity of thoughts, diversity of opinions, and you have to welcome that. Because I feel like a lot of the time, in the D&I world, we talk about what is right. And a lot of time when you talk about what is right, you're ignoring the other side of the book. So people are afraid to say something that's wrong. seemingly quote unquote wrong, or things that that don't fit into this what is right segment. So I think it is a double-edged sword, right? You on one hand you want to encourage more conversations around D&I, but if you don't have a safe space, if you don't facilitate in a way where you welcome disagreement, where you welcome different opinions, people will just shy away from having any opinion because they don't want to say the wrong thing, they don't want to be cancelled, and people are afraid of communicating or saying what is true to them, right? And if people don't share or showcase different opinions, no one's going to learn, no one's going to grow. So I think as a leader, the real kind of inclusion or true inclusion that I think is to be able to facilitate a safe space, welcome open dialogues, and have different people share their different opinions. And of course, you can disagree, but we all need to learn how to disagree graciously and respectfully. And then from then, it's all about this open conversation that really help us, move forward. Because if not, we're just gonna stay there, even with a D&I practice, or we're just gonna take 10 steps back because everyone's just so afraid of sharing. Yeah.
I think you hit the nail on the head. I think even a lot of leaders, they don't know, they bring diversity, but then they don't know how to manage all that diversity and accept all that difference of thoughts, which also includes a lot of vulnerability. And I love what you said is about you building a safe place where you welcome all kinds of opinions from this diverse group. I really like it. What would you like to see in the workplace? What would be your dream to see in the workplace?
Yeah, so I think the number one thing that I like to see in the workplace is that people are more accepting towards the idea of having a D&I approach in the workplace. Because I think we are currently in a state where people are very afraid to engage or to speak up or to even participate or give differing opinions, because it's such a sensitive matter, right? Even as a D&I practitioner myself, there's a lot of things that I don't know, right? And like you don't know what you don't know. And of course, I think that everyone, including myself, we all have unconscious biases from the way we grew up, from our upbringing, from our education, and then just the environment that we lived in. It's natural that we all have unconscious bias. So I think right now we are in this very sensitive moment, or in a way people think D&I is a very sensitive topic. So even for companies that have D&I practice or strategy, people are disengaged because they're just afraid of saying the wrong thing, and thus they don't speak up, or they say what the leaders or they say what the peers want to hear, and then end up with a lot of resentment of feeling that this is not a safe space for me to voice my opinion, to share my thoughts, or really truly be myself, which is the opposite of what we want, right? To have a D&I approach. So I think the number one thing that I want to see for workplaces to have is to create smaller pockets of safer space for people to truly share disagreement, differing opinions, and how to share that respectfully and graciously. Because including myself, like we always have disagreement, but sometimes we're just so afraid of talking about it. So I think that's what I feel like ideally what I want is in this journey of D&I, in any companies, there are people who feel safe enough to share different opinions in smaller pockets of safe spaces.
And even to welcome more innovation and even ways to tackle the uncertainty that we have today. So good, Andy. We are coming to the end.
Yeah.
Unfortunately, I mean, I love your journey. And one question that I have now in my mind is, looking back, what would be one piece of advice for your younger self?
I think one piece of advice that I would have for my younger self is that don't be afraid to truly be who you are, and live your life authentically and be unapologetic about it. Because I think when I was growing up, I was very afraid of what my life would be in the future, and I was spiraling a lot when I was young, and it really causes some serious mental health issues. So I think what I would tell my younger self is that everything turns out well. Everything will turn out well. You'll be a successful and fabulous people. You'll be a successful and fabulous person when you grow older. You'll be doing great things. You'll be having great impact in the world. So fret not. Don't be afraid. And just live the world like it's full of rainbows and unicorns. That's what I would tell my younger self. I think when I was young, you need to enjoy life. But I think when I was younger, I was in very dark moments because I was trying to find myself. I was trying to come to terms with my own sexuality and and not knowing what the future will hold for me. So I think that's what I want to tell myself in a very more positive light, to enjoy life, be who you are, be authentic, and you don't have to say sorry to anyone for doing that. Yeah.
So nice. I think your younger self would be very proud of you today.
I hope so.
Good. I'm so happy we had this conversation. I really admire, your openness, your vulnerability, but also your determination, how you are showing up authentically and also now sharing your story so that more people show up authentically and they can change the world, right? Thank you for coming and keep inspiring us.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. Yay.